When the banks collapsed, there were many who said that maybe we had entered a world where it was no longer possible for smaller countries, including our own, to maintain an independent currency in such a globalized financial system. So therefore, whereas there had been a minority supporting EU membership, because of the banking collapse, there was now a majority for that. However, in the 2 years that have passed since, the activities by Britain and the Netherlands, which for a long time were supported by the European Union, have raised a question in the minds of many Icelanders: what kind of club is this anyhow?
So you're saying these issues, obviously, the way the UK and the Dutch have handled themselves in the negotiations and the northern fisheries issues, you're saying this should give the Icelandic people a reason to pause for considering EU entry? In these negotiations, the European Union really has to face the question, how much do they really want Iceland as a member? Who should be on the hook for this more than $5 billion that the UK and Holland are seeking? What we have fundamentally said in Iceland is that there was not a state guarantee behind this private bank. The Icelandic nation didn't guarantee this private bank, and therefore the British and the Dutch should acknowledge that. But the problem was that the British and the Dutch governments unilaterally in October of 2008 took action on this without consulting us. And we are, of course, willing to discuss it and try to find a solution, but it has to be a fair solution. What is the solution? Because I know the Icelandic government is not in a position to negotiate any price settlement. So how are these two nations going to recoup their money? Nobody can argue that the people of Iceland or our political or democratic system is not acting in a responsible way to this financial crisis. But that doesn't mean that we should have to agree to outrageous demands from the British and the Dutch governments. Because in addition to taking unilateral action on the deposit, Gordon Brown, God bless his political memory, went on global television, not only British television, but global television, and declared that Iceland was a bankrupt country, which was utter nonsense, as is demonstrated what has happened since. But everybody else in the world believed him, because at that stage he was at the height of his reputation as a financial saver of the world. So Icelandic companies who had been dealing successfully with their partners all over the world suddenly faced closed door everywhere. And it took us months to correct the damage that he created with this. And in addition, the British government utilized the anti-terrorism legislation to classify Iceland, the government, the central bank, together with Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, on the terrorism list, officially published. And all these actions created an enormous damage to the Icelandic economy. Is the tone better with Mr. Cameron in place? It remains to be tested. I have to say, with all due respect to the new Prime Minister, when he was asked a question in the House of Commons a few weeks ago about Iceland, his answer clearly indicated that he hadn't really been briefed on the issue. So I hope we can have the opportunity to discuss this with him in an open way.